Salt kissed the wooden prow of the Silence, as dawn bled thinly across the Ironman's bay. Pale rose smothered by bruised, storm-heavy clouds. Euron Greyjoy stood barefoot on the slick deck beside his brother's namesake figurehead. Mute, flayed faces, nailed where a mermaid ought to arch in song. The priest's hair lay rope-thick and sea-clotted against his shoulders. Seawater dripped from the beard he had plunged into the cold holy tide an hour before. He had prayed to the drowned god, to the old grey father of abyssal halls, for deliverance from the black thing that had come whispering out of Valyria on iron wings. But the surf had answered only with its thousand-year roar, and the gulls had watched with bright, pitiless eyes. Behind Euron, on a raised platform, notched into the main deck, Euron Greyjoy lounged upon a high chair of weirwood and sable iron, boots propped on the rail. He wore no crown today, only a patched cloak of dusky reds and midnight blues that shifted like oil on water. The color clung to him, impossible, humming faintly even in shadow. His good eye glittered in unsettling summer sky blue. The other, black as jet, like a polished stone stolen from some shoreless night, seemed to swallow dawn entire. Euron toyed with the object that had driven priests to despair and maesters to madness. The Valyrian dragon horn, banded in rune-etched steel, alive with faint, pulsing heat. He traced a finger across glyphs that writhed as though the metal itself remembered fire. A hush bound the crew. Even the rowers, chained in their thwarts, felt the air grow heavier the nearer their gaze strayed to that ancient trumpet. Some men had tried to touch it the night they'd stolen it from the smoking ruins of Mantares. Every one of them now lay beneath the surf, lungs brined and hearts burst, throats blistered black by names no mortal tongue could voice. "Brother Dine?" Euron's voice cracked with salt and dread. "Put that accursed thing away. The drowned god is but one storm in a world of tempests," Euron murmured. "And storms bow, as all must, to the gale that commands the dragons." He raised the horn, careless as a child might wave a soldier's trumpet. The runes flared. Heat rippled into the damp dawn, curling steam from the deckboards. "No," Euron breathed. Salt stung his nostrils. He smelled the deep places of the sea, something ancient rousing beneath leagues of black water. "Sound it here and you doom every soul aboard." Euron's smile showed a flash of pearl-white teeth. "Every soul was doomed the moment they followed me. Yet reckon how much truer their doom might grow if we fail. Did you hear the ravens from the east, brother? Meereen burns again. Dragonfire has grown cheap as copper. The world is changing, Euron, and we must change with it. Either I bend the beasts to my will, or I become cinder in their breath. There is no third path." He pressed the mouth of the trumpet to his lips. There was no warmth of flesh upon flesh, only the parchment crispness of old sorceress hides stretched over silver bone. Euron saw the priest who had once tried the same at the Kingsmoot, Cragorn Blacktea, thrash and die, lungs seared from within. But Euron was not Cragorn. Euron had been elsewhere. He came back touched. The horn's first note split the sea. It was not sound. It was the tearing of firmament, the lowing of mountains, the groan of continents grinding beneath fathoms of molten stone. It crushed the sky and drove gulls shrieking for distant air. It twisted in the ear like molten glass poured down a man's throat. Euron staggered back, palms over his ears. But the roar tunneled through bone, through memory, through the private places of belief where gods make their thrones. All along the Silence, men collapsed, eyes bleeding scarlet threads. The figurehead nailed upon the prow shivered, lips cracking open in a voiceless scream. Water slapped the hull in nervous, arrhythmic pulses, as if the bay itself recoiled. Euron's lips never left the trumpet, yet his chest did not rise for breath. Black veins crawled beneath his skin. When he finished, the note lingered beyond hearing. An echo inside men's thoughts, a brand upon the world's pulse. White fog steamed from the runebands. A thin rivulet of blood leaked from Euron's left nostril. He wiped it away, careless. Somewhere leagues distant, somewhere beyond wave and wind, an answer stirred. On Dragonstone the night was thick with sudden disquiet. Queen Daenerys Targaryen stood upon the castle's windswept parapet, with Drogon coiled like living midnight behind her. wings mantling the battlements. His yellow eyes narrowed to slits as if listening. A tremor rippled along his crimson-lined throat. Embers hissed between serrated teeth. "What is it?" Daenerys whispered, though the words fell flat in the rising wind. She felt it too, a tightening in the blood, a pull beneath the breastbone like some half-forgotten song her ancestors once hummed over dragon eggs. Valyrian roosted upon the tower of the Ghost Hill, pale wings mantled. Rhaegal lurked on the yard's far side, claws chipping basalt. Both lifted their heads, throats reverberating with low, throaty warbles. It was not their hunting cry. It was the sound they made in old Valyrian nursery tales, when they sensed the coming of a master. She laid a hand against Drogon's scaled cheek. The dragon was iron-hot beneath her palm. "You have no other master," she told him, voice fierce but tremulous. "You are mine." Drogon exhaled a plume of smoke that smelt of clove and ash. Yet he shifted, uneasy, muscles bunching. Below, in the courtyard, Sir Barristan Selmy felt it too. The old knight's sword arced free of its scabbard with a hiss even he scarcely heard. Irri dropped the brazier she'd been setting, red coals scattered like spilled jewels. All the dragon's keepers, unskinned men in quilted coats, Valyrians of the freehold remnant, looked skyward as though expecting a comet. But nothing flaming crossed the heavens. Only a hush, breathable and crushing, leaned through Dragonstow's ancient halls, like the memory of a great bell still pealing. Across the narrow sea, Maester Marwyn the mage woke in a clutter of scrolls and glasswork. His heart hammered with someone else's terror. Objects rattled on shelves in the dark. A green candle guttered blue, lambent flame. He mopped sweat from his brow, though the night air in Old Town was cool. "Dragonbinder," he muttered. He had read of 3 such horns in warped, worm-eaten annals. Ernok Quaria that sank with Volantene fleets, Atsalha that cracked the sky at Valyria's doom, and the unnamed third, forged by the tiger priests of Old Tolos. Marwyn had never been certain whether Euron truly possessed it. Now certainty devoured doubt like wildfire sweeping a dry field. The mage hobbled to his window and stared toward the western sea, toward the iron islands he had abandoned decades ago. Under the argent scythe of the moon he fancied he saw a ripple of black-winged shapes dancing at the edge of sight, though he knew full well the distance was too great for mortal eye. He felt them nonetheless. Dragons waking. "I must reach her," he rasped, thinking of Daenerys, before the world is bound in black iron. The second blast came 2 nights later, severing sleep from King's Landing as neatly as a headsman's stroke. Windows rang, dogs howled, and Lord Qyburn dropped a jar of pickled dwarf's hand had been cataloguing. The jar burst. Fingers thumped across the stone like pale pink spiders. Far above, the Red Keep's ravens jittered in their cages, beating wings bloody, beaks snapping. In her golden bed, Queen Cersei Lannister dreamt of wildfire and green laughter. She woke choking on smoke that was not there, sure for an instant that Aerys Targaryen's pyromancers had come for her. Across the river at the encamped Faith militant, High Septon Humble slipped from prayer to seizure, froth bubbling white at the corner of his mouth. Every sparrow in the camp heard it too, the call from throats older than gods. Their war against queens and kings faltered, if only for heartbeat breaths. On Pike, the third blast shattered the fortress's centuries-cracked causeway stones, crumbling mortar to powder. Lord Governor Roderick Harlaw, eldest of Euron's reluctant bannermen, felt his ears bleed as he sat scribing tactical notes in the lonely hours. The ink scattered with his quill, making blot-black storms upon vellum. He threw aside the quill and lurched to his balcony in time to see the silence split the fog like a knife. Its red sails ghost-lit by lightning that crawled the cloud curtain above. Bone torches lined the rail. Mute deckhands rowed with iron vigor, though no breeze touched those sails. At the prow, the Valyrian horn glimmered between Euron's gauntlets, runes bright as forge embers. Roderick's heart quailed. He had read fragments of lost Valyrian treatises. The horn did not break dragons to service by kindness. It forged bonds of agony. It demanded a life price. Sometimes the bearers, more often the beasts. frameworks of blood magic bound obedience into claw and sinew. A dragon enslaved thus became a living storm, fearless, tireless, and half-mad. Worse, through such instruments Valyria had wrought its worst atrocities, setting serpents upon city and citizen alike, until the Tolanese rebellion drowned streets in molten stone. Euron meant to become Valyria reborn, without Valyria's memory to temper him. The Silence sailed not for the bay's inner harbors, but beyond, into deeper water, as though all Pike's peers smelled of weakness. Ironmen longed to cheer their lord's return, but dared not. A hush had woven itself into the weft of world, and men sensed that one wrong breath might unravel it. Euron Greyjoy disembarked alone. He staggered up the shingle like a man half-drowned, clothes stiff with salt. No soul went to aid him. His eyes were haunted caves. On the strand he knelt, spitting seawater, and dug his palms into sand, as though to ground a storm carried within his skull. Above, the castle's ragged towers cut the sky like harpoons. Yet Euron did not set foot on shore. He remained upon his deck throne, horn cradled on his lap, watching gulls wheel overhead as if each bird were a cipher of some larger calculus. He waited for darkness. When night at last swallowed the horizon, he stood, lifted the horn, and with no fanfare sounded it once more. This time, the sea answered. Far to the south, beneath Dragonstow's volcanic cliffs, waves foamed with sudden frenzy. Great black backs broke the surf, basilisk-scaled shapes the size of fishing smacks. Fishermen's lanterns bobbed like fireflies, then snuffed, swallowed by thrashing tails. Whales gulped air and dove for deeper trenches, anything to escape a song older than their lineage. On the castle heights, Daenerys felt Drogon's wings boom. He launched skyward with a scream, scattering loose stone from parapets. Rhaegal followed, then Viserion, each twisting into the midnight gust like blades seeking their scabbards in the dark. Daenerys cried after them, voice lost. Dragons roared answerless, then tilted in unison, drawn north, as though some invisible skein hooked nostril and bone. Ser Barristan shouted for men to seize the queen, fearing she would leap astride Drogon unarmed. But she did not. She watched her children shrink against the stars, fury warring with fear, until they were only ember dots consumed by night. Inside her chest something tore. She had ridden dragons across sky and sea, had believed their bond unbreakable, yet the sound she had heard was not theirs. It was deeper, tunneling through bloodlines, promising homecoming to creatures wrought in Valyria's cradle of smoke. Home, but also leash. They will come back, she whispered, as much to herself as to those who crowded the ramparts. They must. But a voice in her bones whispered, or they will bring doom upon us all. In the stepstones, amidst pirate fires and shattered hulls, the man called Bloodbeard raised eyes skyward and saw 3 dragons streak overhead like meteors, banners of shadow rippling behind them. He spat wine, overturned his warty wooden throne, and swore to any who'd listen that the world was ending anew. In Myr, in Pentos, in Lys, temple bells rang unbidden. Acolytes trembled. The sorcerer of the Pale Hand, an exile from Cahor, locked himself in a room scribbling formulas whose ink smoked black. In Volantis, the red temple flared with fervor, 100-foot flames licking obsidian spires. The high priest Beniro pronounced that the one-eyed kraken was an abomination willed by shadow. He bade his flock prepare for fire and faith alike. Yet none could stop what moved upon the sea. Euron Greyjoy cut a solitary silhouette upon the quarterdeck as dawn's first sickle severed the eastern horizon. Around him the air shimmered, warping like heat-hazed stone. The horn lay silent, but its runes pulsed low like slumbering embers. He closed his good eye, inhaled brine, and opened himself to visions. He stood amid a hall of bleeding stars, each star cracked, streaming molten light that smelled of rust and roses. Dragons coiled overhead, wings blotting constellations. They wore chains of night around their throats. The links clinked like silver coins in darkness. One star fell, spearing ocean. A mountain of water surged, glittering with 1,000 moons, then crashed, leaving only void. When he opened his eye again, the vision clung like oil. He licked dry lips and tasted metal. The prophesied path burned clear. Sail for Old Town, tear the high tower from its roots, climb its great height. There, on the tallest flame-lit balcony in the realm, call again, and dragons would come like hawks to the lure. But first he needed a beacon. Hoist black sails, he told the mute at the wheel. Course south by southwest. We make port at Harlaw. Gather every captive maester they have. Their chains will rattle a sweeter song once they stew in hot iron. Knowledge is blood. Bleed them, and the horn will drink. Menander once. Euron staggered up the gangplank, salt still crusted in his beard. Enough, he roared, voice ragged but aflame. You toy with powers that drowned God's fear. The sea will swallow your pride. Euron turned, the sea breeze swirling his blue-black cloak. Then let it come. I have peered into oceans the sea itself forgets. He stepped closer until only inches divided them. Kneel, brother, and I may let you live to baptize the world anew. In fire. Euron spat. I will baptize you in the deep. I will slit your throat and drown your blasphemy. Now. Euron's hand seized Euron's throat, iron quick. He leaned close. You will do nothing. His whisper carried the hiss of waves upon razored reefs. You ran from me once, on that plank above the wine-dark sea. Do not run again. There is no shore beyond my shadow. He released Euron. The priest stumbled back, clutching his neck, shocked at the gentle ease with which Euron had restrained him. Watch, Euron said. Bear witness as gods are forged. Weeks bled into one another on the voyage south. Storms reached for the silence yet twisted aside as though wary. Lightning stalked the horizon but never touched the mast. Mute oarsmen rode days without pause, neither eating nor sleeping. Observers swore they saw their lips sewn shut by some unseen hand. At Harlaw, Euron's ships ringed the harbor like iron teeth. Roderick Harlaw surrendered his libraries in exchange for mercy. The captured maesters were bound, gagged, and herded aboard the Silence. Their citation chains clinked a dirge as waves slapped hulls dyed crimson by dusk's reflection. In the captain's cabin, Euron unrolled cobwebbed scrolls and studied Valyrian sigils with predatory devotion. Some scrolls depicted horns flaying skin from bearer and beast alike. Others spoke of blood owed, the sacrifice of 7 thrice-blessed kings to temper the horn's rage. Euron traced each glyph until it embedded in his dreaming hours, until he knew precisely how many lives the horn still required before dragons could be seized without slaying them outright. The answer came as a whisper curling from the runes themselves. 3, bound by blood and fire beneath the tower's light. Euron, chained in the bilges, wrestled nightmare after nightmare. A world burning beneath black sails, seawater boiled to steam, krakens with wings devouring moonlight. South they sailed, past arbor wineships fleeing, past broken columns of old Kiz. They took Saltcliffe, then Orkmont, leaving pyres smoking behind. Every death fed the horn, though no man saw Euron blow it again. The metal glowed hotter each night. Deck planks charred beneath where it rested. Yet Euron carried no burn upon his flesh. At last, the granite mass of Old Town loomed, crowned by the high tower's beacon. White-hot, through coastal fog, ships choked the harbor, trading cogs, reach levies, cobbled war galleys, all ignorant of the doom stalking them on ruby sails. Euron smiled. The future unfurled before him. Visions of dragons circling that shining tower, wings storm-black against the fire. Of terrified maesters watching their city crumble. Of Daenerys Targaryen kneeling upon Dragonstone's scorched sands, crown hammered from her skull, dragons collared in iron. He licked salt from his lips. Dawn was hours off, but he tasted already the ash of Hightower's pyres. The silence glided into the outer roads. No war horn sounded from the city walls. No harbor chain deployed. I am a dream they do not dare to have, Euron thought. Below decks, the captured maesters sobbed soft prayers to the Seven. Chains rattled like winter wind in burnt willows. None among them yet guessed they would be offered to the horn at dawn. Euron stroked the polished, rune-banded steel, and felt its heat adore his palm. In the glow he saw reflected not a man but a monstrous silhouette, one eye blue as a midday sky, the other a midnight star, both hungry for fire. "Soon," he murmured to the horn. "Soon we roar again, and the world learns fear." Outside the night sighed beneath gathering wings none could see, yet all would soon feel, when sky cracked open and dragons answered an older master's call. The horizon brightened with the faintest smear of greenish gold. Inside the captain's cabin Euron unfurled a map of burning velvet. Valyria drawn not as ruins but as empire renewed. Westeros a field of crowns uprooted. Essos a necklace of slave cities shattered, all bound by lines of ink that corkscrewed like smoke from the horn's mouth. He set a finger upon Dragonstone. "First the beacon," he told the mute steward hovering by the door. "Then the queen." His smile was a blade's flash. "And if the dragons prove willful, I shall break them upon the horn's song until they kneel." The steward bowed, mouth stitched closed. Euron stepped onto the deck. Moon's shards glittered on water like shards of colored glass. The Hightower's beacon turned, its flame a steady heartbeat. He drew breath through the night, tasting oak smoke, river silt, the faint spice of far-off Dornish peppers borne on wind. All would belong to him. "Ready the launch," he said. "We greet dawn with blood." The horn flared, runes waking, as though savoring the promise. Below, in the hold, Euron Greyjoy heard metal hum and prayed. For the first time in his salt-drenched life, not to the drowned god but to any god who might yet stand against the crow-eyed storm he had once called brother. Outside the world held its breath. And somewhere high above, dragons wheeled on restless currents, eyes wide, hearts thrumming to the memory of a note that had no equal in mortal symphony. A note demanding answer, obedience, destiny. Dawn crept higher. The silence waited, horn poised. With the sun's first spear of light, Euron Greyjoy lifted Dragonbinder to his lips once more. Ready to bind wind, fire, and crowned to the will of a single eye, black as the abyss. The horn sang. The world broke, and the dragons came. Ka. Night clung to the reach like a damp shroud, and even the roses seemed to hold their perfume in check, as though wary of breathing. South-southwest of Old Town, on the long bar of black rock called Maiden's Braid, 3 iron-borne longships slid between pillars of mist and grounded in the hush before dawn. No drums, no horns, no shouted orders, only the hush of oars shipped and the rasp of chain as plank bridges whispered down. Ashore, grass sighed and parted for silhouettes whose spit smelled of brine and old blood. These were ravens, Euron's picked thieves, clad in boiled leather black as slag, faces streaked with the white grease of whale fat and ash. Each man bore an axe sized for hacking ribs from whales. Their captain, a wiry Ibonese named Carl Soresmile, chewed cloves to mask the scent of spirits. He spat the husks into a puddle that steamed faintly despite the chill. 8 miles yonder, he murmured, pointing a crooked finger toward lantern specks twinkling above orchard haze. Redwine Road. Reach runners'll be thick as fleas, but we only need 3. 1 lordling's blood in the horn, 2 small folk to wet the runes. His voice carried no triumph, only the weary cadence of a butcher reciting cuts. They fanned out, tread muffled by dew-heavy sedge. Above, the moon's twinsied behind scudding cloud. Waxing gibbous, a promise of flood tides. It was said the blood moon would rise full in a fortnight. Superstition whispered doors between worlds grew thin beneath such light. Carl cared nothing for portents. He cared for throats to open and screams to silence before they blossomed. Within Old Town the Hightower's great lantern still burned, a tower of day in the heart of night. Its quartz windows glowed like coals born inside a giant's fist. The air tasted of river silt and olive smoke. Gulls dozed on the wharf pilings, heads under wings. Harbor bells tolled each half-watch, but to Samuel Tarley, maester in gray, yet unlinked still, the clangs sounded different tonight, brittle, hurried, as if the bronze feared its own echo. Sam had fallen asleep upon a stack of ledgers in the lowest reserve, dreaming of Gilly and Little Sam, of Hornhill's kitchens awful with the smell of lemon cakes. The dream cracked when the third night bell crashed. He woke with ink on his cheek and the dull certainty that something outside the library's limestone ribs had changed. Parchment fluttered where no draught should reach. Candles guttered, although no shutter stood open. He shuffled to the embrasure. Heart thumping with the old fat boy terror his vows and robes had never quite scoured away. Beyond the Bailey court, he saw the lantern flame flicker, a hiccup of gold. Lanterns of that size did not flicker. A shard of memory stabbed him. The first time he had watched the red comet flash across the sky at Castle Black. How cold had folded around the world that same night. Above, the flutter of ravens. Ominous. Sarah Leeser had barked, now half a realm south. Sam heard wings again, but larger, slower. Boom boom like war banners snapping. He frowned, peering. Nothing stirred above the tower. No gull, no ship lantern, no drifting embers. Yet I hear wings. Behind him steps shuffled. Alaris the Sphinx, face drowsy but eyes bright as always. He wore only a nightshirt, curls tousled. Still abed, Sam? You'll kill yourself under those ledgers. Then, noticing Sam's stare, what is it? Sam opened his mouth, but before words formed, the sound came. A vast, resonant thump that shook dust from vaulting ribs. It rolled through masonry, through marrow dow. Books leapt on their shelves. Glass cracked in spiderwebs. Sam clutched the sill. Alaris grabbed a shelf to steady himself. What in the name of the seven? Alaris managed. Outside, dogs barked, windows clattered, and somewhere down by the Honeywine a woman screamed. A gust of wind freighted with brine lashed across the bailey, snapping a banner from its pole. The banner whirled like a slain swan and vanished beyond the ramparts. Sam felt his stomach churn. Again, he thought, remembering the account he had copied of the Kingsmoot on Old Wyke. The blasted priest who had tried the horn, the men who died with lungs cooked. Dragonbinder. He had never seen it, yet the name tasted of soot when he thought it. Euron's horn. The story said each blast demanded a life, but by the old gods and the new. How many times had it sounded now? Alaris found his arm. We should wake Archmaester Malos, he said. Hell want. Another boom swallowed words, this time more distant but no less chilling. The stone beneath their slippers thrummed. Alaris cursed in the summer tongue, eyes widening. He had seen dragons once, when he was still a sand snake. Their wing beats rattled shutters for miles. He knew that cadence. He looked to the dusky east, beyond the lantern's glare. Faint motes of ember speckled the horizon. 3, maybe 4, winking and vanishing, winking again, but lower than a star should, moving where a star could not. Sam found his voice. They're coming, he croaked. The dragons. Alaris said nothing. He was already moving, bare feet slapping marble as he ran for stairs leading up and up toward the Ravenry. Sam followed, robes flapping, pulse drumming, thinking only. Gilly, hold him tight. Somewhere safe, somewhere dark. And gods forgive me if I do not see you again. The silence waited upon a sliver of black water west of the harbor chain. Masts painted the color of dried heart's blood. Her sister ships, Leak, forsaken Bane, pinned a crescent behind her, sails furled. On the quarterdeck, beneath a sky now paling from blue-black to bruise-violet, Euron Greyjoy stood barefoot atop a sanded plank, where he had chalked a solstice spiral in Valyrian glyphs. Before him knelt the captives, 3 in chain, 3 weeping, 3 forced silent by ropes of eel skin wound around their jaws. Archmaester Walgrave, no longer arch, half his links torn when ravens shredded his door, shivered with each breath. His nightgown clung to parchment skin. One slipper lost revealed a heel crusted with sores. Next to him, Maester Lorcus of Starry Sept whimpered prayers through snot. Between them, a youth of perhaps 17, pale as new curd, bound in apple-green velvet trimmed sable. A lordling plucked from his father's manse near Honeyholt. His name, Euron had learned, was Theoteric. His copper hair gleamed in the first hints of dawn. Euron Greyjoy, wrestled to his knees by two ravens, stared hollow-eyed from the rail where he hung in manacles. His faith felt brittle inside him, like ice that might shatter at a footstep. Yet still he prayed beneath his breath. Lord of flood and foam, drown this devil. Let him sink. Euron lifted the horn. Dawn kindled the runes. Heat shimmered above its mouth like the breath above burning pitch. A hush fell. So absolute the moan of rigging sounded like screams a league away. 3 souls. Thrice bound, Euron intoned. 3 souls. Thrice claimed. He touched the gleaming horn rim to Walgrave's brow. The old man flinched, and the steel hissed as if flesh were water on forge iron. A scarlet spiral bloomed, smoking. Walgrave shrieked and toppled. The ravens dragged him back upright. Lorcus wet himself. Theoteric bit the gag until his gums bled. Euron breathed deep. And blew. No note at first. Only emptiness, the hush before a knife drops. Then sound rose from silence like a leviathan rending the sea. It had pitch and timbre but belonged to no mortal scale. A chord of basalt and lightning and centuries howling open. The deck jumped. Walgrave's eyes burst blood. Theo's gag shredded as he tried to scream. Lorcus convulsed, ragdolling so violently his neck broke, the crack lost beneath the horn's roar. Euron felt his eardrums split, yet still he heard the deeper resonance beneath. The voice within voices crying, name me, until words themselves unraveled to raw shape of want. When Euron lowered the horn at last, dawn had come, a flat pewter disk above a horizon bruised black. The Maester Lorcus lay limp, head askew. Walgrave, mouth foaming pink, trembled and then fell on his side, dead. Theoteric gasped, eyes white-ringed but alive. Euron smiled, lips fissured and bleeding. Thrice bound, he whispered. Once more we'll open heaven's gate. He wiped a sleeve across his chin. Beyond the rail, water boiled. Euron stared, dumb. Rising where minutes ago had been only ripples, now towered pillars of steam. Then a shape, monstrous and glimmering black, burst the surface. A kraken? No. Sea stone. A tower of fused black glass thrust upward, only to collapse with thunder, sending waves hammering the hull. From inside the plume of spray screamed a sound like metal twisting. Euron inhaled, tasting flint. They come, he murmured. Sky turned pearl as Drogon appeared first, titanic, wings punching air so mighty, the harbor chain swung on its winches. Rhaegal followed, emerald and bronze, and, pale behind, Valyrian, tail streaming vapor. They arrowed west-southwest, throats vibrating with the call none but they could answer. Ahead, on the water's slate canvas, 3 crimson sails unfurled to greet them, runes gleaming upon a raised quarterdeck, where a one-eyed man lifted a horn into dawn's newborn light. Daenerys Targaryen rode not upon Drogon. She clung instead to Rhaegal's neck, legs gripping scale ridges, hair torn back by gale. Tears streamed, though salt dried them faster than they fell. She had reached Dragonstone's stony dock, just as her dragons wheeled north. She could not bear letting them vanish. She leapt onto Rhaegal before the beast launched. Now every wing beat hammered her bones. Each gust threatened to hurl her free. Below, Maester Benero's vision of fire and kraken unfolded. A dozen black warships rode from the Hightower's throat. Old Town's harbor chain clanked upward, but too late. The silence already slipped across. Drogon shrieked once, not challenge, but question, uncertain. The note from the horn twisted inside his skull, promising nest and mate and home he had never known. He slowed, vectors of wind ramming belly scales, and circled above the lead galliot, sniffing. Rhaegal faltered likewise. Valyrian keened, thrashing tail, confusion biting at instincts honed on winds half the world away. On the ship, Euron exulted. He lowered the horn, chest smoking now where glyphs had burned through linen. His good eye sparkled. His black eyes swallowed more dawn. Yes, he cooed. Closer, darlings. Theoteric moaned. Euron spat. Abomination. Euron turned. Truth. He raised a hand. Ravens loosed Walgrave's corpse, pitched it overboard. A splash lost beneath wing roar. Lorcas followed. The water accepted sacrifice in curt gouts of foam. But the Eoteric he dragged upright, blade kissing the soft underside of jaw. Euron's smile grew almost tender. Final note, he said. Blood of maiden. Blood of dragon. Blood of maester. Runesteel drinks thrice. And then, power. Daenerys saw the deck below. The horn, the hostage, the Ironborn, the priest chained. Rage overwhelmed fear. She clutched a handhold behind Rhaegal's skull ridge and shouted Valyrian commands. Rhaegal shuddered, torn between queen and call. Dracarys! She screamed, thrusting a trembling arm. But in that heartbeat, Euron dragged the horn to mouth again, etched bands glowing almost white. He blew before flame caught. Sound immolated sky. What happened aboard Silence during that third blast would be argued from Archmaester lectures to tavern tales for centuries. Some said dawn split open and bled ruby. Others swore they saw the lantern atop Hightower dim and flare, as if fed by oil of souls. Those nearest claimed dragons shrieked like living anvils struck by titans, and one, pale Valyrian, tipped, faltered, then folded wings and fell as if every muscle in his titanic body had forgotten the sky. He struck water a cable's length beyond the Silence, column of spray, tall as the tower walls. When he surfaced, he wheeled clumsily, neck jerking. Runes on the horn blazed incandescent. Lines of molten light shot along Euron's cheeks, vanishing into cold black eye. The Eoteric's throat opened beneath Euron's dagger that same instant. The horn demanded blood, and got it. The youth made no sound, life fleeing in a hot rush that steamed against sea air. Valyrian roared once, not defiance, but recognition. Then, slowly, inexorably, he flapped toward the horn, water streaming off wings. Above, Drogon howled. Daenerys felt the sound drive spears of pain behind her ribs. She pressed brow against Rhaegal's neck, whispering plea after plea. Rhaegal's eyes whirled black and green. He fought the invisible leash with muscles bunching, wings staggering. But the more he fought, the tighter tether drew. Glowing glyphs on the horn pulsed faster. Euron watched, despair transmuted to fury. He wrenched against manacles, crucifying wrists. Yet iron bit deeper. Blood slicked his palms. Still he pulled. Let me drown, he begged his god. Break these bonds and I shall die in your name. The chain snapped. No one saw how. Maybe the iron fatigued. Maybe the deck heaved just so. Yet Euron was free. He surged upright, seized a boarding hatchet from startled Raven, and sprinted, bare feet slapping tar-slick deck. Euron was mid-blast, oblivious. Euron swung. The hatchet bit horn just below runeband. Sparks of indigo shot into air like forged stars. Sound cut, cunt clean, and Euron's lungs expelled a rush of flaming mist. Steel met steel. Glyphs cracked. For an instant, silence deeper than death swallowed the world. Then the horn screamed. Not by breath. By breaking. Runebands exploded outward in spirals of white-hot shards. A wave of force blasted Euron across the deck. He smashed a post, ribs cracking, hatchet torn from hands. Euron staggered back, horn halves smoking in fists. Blood poured from ear and eye. His good eye whited. Pupil burned away. He laughed, a choked gargle. Valyrian shrieked anew. This time pain. The glow that had begun to creep along his scales flickered, faltered. Rhaegal felt leash slacken. He banked high, winging free. Drogon, momentarily stilled, shook head and roared defiance, smoke fuming from nostrils. Euron hurled half-horn at Drogon in rage. It spun, trailing luminous spit, and splashed harmless. Obey, he roared, voice shredded. But the spell lay broken. Dragons remembered their own blood. Drogon stooped. Flame poured, a river of incandescent ruin. The foremast of silence vanished in nova heat. Iron men vaporized where they stood. Sails caught, becoming curtains of sun. Euron threw himself aside. Fire kissed cloak and hair, searing flesh, yet he rolled to his knees. Cloak ablaze, laughter bubbling wet from throat. "More!" he cried amid hell glare. Again. Drogon climbed, banking for second pass. Rhaegal flanked, green shadow, purpose aligning with Queen's will. Daenerys pointed, fury incarnate, and the brothers filled sky with cataclysm. But in the belly of silence, among exploding casks and melting bolts, broken horn shards pulsed. Still alive. Magic older than kingdoms refuses death easy. The sundered halves began to scream. Shrill as nails across slate. Shards singing counterpoint. A wind rose. Cyclonic, drawing flame downward, swirling into vortex. Fire collapsed upon itself. Sucked into horns' cavities, vanishing like smoke down a god's throat. Drogon's second gout stuttered. Flames siphoned mid-air. Rhaegal's burst careened wild. The dragons reared, confusion boiling. Euron, swathed in fire-eaten rags, crawled toward the glowing shards and pressed palms to them. His burnt lips shaped words none could hear. A broken prayer to powers deeper than night. Flesh fused with metal. Half-horn melded to forearm like living brand. Atop Rhaegal, Daenerys felt her beast's fire choke off and panic. She glimpsed Euron's new form. Arm a blade of runesteel, horn-integrated, bleeding light, and dread chilled even her dragon's sanguine core. Euron, ribs shattered, saw the same. Pulse thundered in ears filled with blood. If he lives, the horn lives, and the world ends. He crawled across a deck now sagging under conflagration. Beneath starboard rail, a powder cask had breached. Tar bubbled seething. Flames licked every line. Euron reached a fallen spar, levered himself up, and limped toward Euron. Hatchet lost but purpose iron. Ravens barred way. He seized a broken belaying pin, clubbing left. Right. One mute fell. Skull. Spilt. Another lunged, blade flashing. Euron took cut along thigh yet staggered on. Euron rose. Horn arm raised like sword forged of dawn. Runes emitted keening note, magnetizing flame, into blade ora-ta-ta. He swung. A sheet of white fire sliced a ship's boat in half. Timbers shrieking to steam. "Brother," he called, voice flanged by meld of steel and lung. "Come, receive my blessing." Euron charged, coughing red. He leapt, driving belaying pin two-handed at Euron's chest. It struck, splintering, barely denting charred ribs. Euron smirked, backhanding Euron with fused arm. Steel and flame met flesh. Euron flew, slammed against deckhouse, vision flaring white. Above, Rhaegal circled. Daenerys saw priests stand. Compassion flickered. Still she guided him lower. "Finish it," she told herself. Drogon hammered down and dive. Euron raised hornblade, screaming challenge. Flame once more ripped from throat of dragon, but the blade inhaled it, runes flaring to nova, feeding on fire. Stream dwindled, guttered. Drogon veered, roaring frustration. Euron laughed, a noise half metal, half mad. "Fire is mine." He thrust arm skyward, releasing stored flame in spear of white heat. It knifed through Drogon's left wing membrane. Dragonfire screams rattled Old Town's windows. Daenerys tasted bile. She gripped Rhaegal, diving hard. Crossbow bolts from Reach galleys whizzed aimless, but none mattered now. She glimpsed Euron crawling again, toward something glimmering between broken planks. The second shard of horn, still pulsing. Realization struck. Break shard and perhaps magic collapsed. But he was failing. Limbs shook like reeds. Daenerys made choice swift as lightning. She guided Rhaegal to skim low over deck. As they passed, she flung herself from saddle, King's blood leaping into chaos. Wood hit hard. Pain ripped ankle. But she rolled, came up between corpses. Smoke choked. Heat blistered. Ahead, Euron turned, surprise slashing features. Flameblade guttered, then surged brighter. Behind, Euron reached Shard, fingers closing. Daenerys stooped, snatched a fallen chisel from charred tool chest. Perhaps for sail repair. Threw it like arrow. It spun once, twice, struck Horn Shard dead center. Aye. Chime rang clear as temple bell. Crack, fissured crystal, raced through runes. Euron howled, arm blade pulsing erratic. Euron slammed Shard with fist of bone and fury. Crystal burst into thousand embers. The horn song ceased. Flameblade collapsed, leaving Euron's arm charred stump fused to dead steel. His eye, both eyes now black, widened in something akin to human fear. He staggered, deck pitched from weight of destruction. Above, Drogon returned, wound smoking but wrath renewed. Fire poured, red gold, unconstrained. This time nothing drank it. It swept Euron and quarterdeck alike, a tide of furnace. Euron's scream never formed. Heat vaporized flesh before breath. Daenerys felt scorching wall approach. She dove beneath rail. Euron leapt likewise. Shielding head, fire stormed overhead, crackling. When breath returned, silence followed, broken only by hiss of cooling embers and distant shouts of men aboard other ships. The silence groaned, masts skeletal stumps, hull ablaze fore to stern, yet water lapped, eager to claim her. Daenerys crawled to rail. Drogon hovered, wings hammering. Rhaegal landed crooked near bow, snapping timbers. She met Aeron's gaze. Salt red eyes, cracked lips. They shared a nod, survivors of cataclysm. Then a crash split deck, mainmast giving final sigh, toppling overside, dragging sails and rigging into sea. Flames hissed, puffed. The ship listed. Off. Euron rasped. Now. He pointed aft where a tangle of rope still hung unburnt over water. Daenerys whistled. Rhaegal lumbered but spread wings. She clambered astride, wincing. Euron shook head. No dragon's seat for him. He instead wrapped rope around wrist and stepped off edge, letting body plunge. Water embraced him, cool, vast, the only god he knew. Silence burned behind, a pyre for dreams forged in madness. Euron's ashes scattered across Reach dawn, borne by wind far inland to settle among sleepy vineyards and golden wheat, as the day awoke unaware. In Old Town's starry sept, bells tolled again, this time ring of deliverance. Archmaester Maulus, cheeks tear-wet, recorded visions from rampart, dragons in battle above harbor, a burning ship. A horn's scream silenced. He knew chronicles would doubt him centuries hence, but ink dried honest. Samwell Tarly found Gillian babes safe in cellar of Radpicker's wind. He embraced them until lungs hurt. Above ground, Alaris cleaned cuts on Sam's arm acquired in dash for shelter. Both heard rumors that Euron Greyjoy had perished. None quite believed it yet. On Maiden's Braid, Carl's sore smile watched towers glow rose gold and spat cloves. Half his ravens lay dead where wildfire jets from distant conflagration had reached them. He weighed retreat, but retreat to what? Without Euron, the war became thunder without storm, song without singer. He should flee north, but krakens devour own when starved. Day deepened. Atop Rhaegal, Daenerys skirted smoke columns, surveying ruin. Two of Euron's sister ships burned. One scuttled, the rest fled. Reach galleys limped from harbor. On floating debris a few ironborn clung, but none raised blade. Drogon circled, wound mended by dragon flesh, slowly knitting. Valyrian, freed. Hove into view, still dripping seawater. He uttered low rumble as if apologizing. Daenerys guided Rhaegal to brush wing against his brother. The dragons crooned, bond reforged. She stared west where the sun climbed. A disk of fire tamed. The dragon horn lay destroyed. Euron lay dust. Yet the taste of sorcery lingered. She sensed the world's weave bent, not entirely restored. Threads severed do not mend without scar. But scars teach kingdoms fear. And she, queen reborn in flame, breaker of chains and now slayer of Horn, had more journeys before night. She nudged Rhaegal toward Dragonstone. Behind, the wreck of Silence collapsed, sinking by stern, sea-gulping charred bones of ship and captain alike. Foam closed, hissing. A swirl of ash floated, then dispersed, leaving only deep waters rolling as they had since dawn of days. Euron Greyjoy washed ashore among reeds north of Honeywine Delta. He coughed brine and blood, lungs blistered. Above him clouds parted. Sun poured like holy oil. He wept, tasting it as sacrament. He had drowned, he had risen. His God had not abandoned him. But what of his brother? Somewhere beneath waves Euron's remained settled, bones fusing to sea stone? Or perhaps deeper still, where even drowned gods dare not dream. He lingered, horn shards beating like twin hearts, awaiting hand to piece them anew. Euron pushed thought aside. He crawled inland to spread word. The kraken fell, the horn shattered. Let the Ironborn choose new path, or drown with old. He staggered upright, a prophet reborn beneath forgiving sun. Behind him, tide rolled whispering secrets only the drowned share. Some endings are beginnings disguised. That evening, as Daenerys landed upon Dragonstone's warm courtyard, Ser Barristan bowed so low his white hair kissed basalt. "It is done," she told him. Her voice rasped from smoke and screams yet vibrated steel. "The horn is gone. The threat is ended." Barristan's eyes shimmered. "Your Grace," he said, voice hoarse. "Today you saved more than us all." She looked past him to her dragons settling on scorched parapets, wings mantling sunset glow. They were hers, by blood, by bond, by choice. No horn, no sorcerer, no man would ever cage them again. Yet she felt tremor of dread, like echo of broken note under heartbeats. Magic undone leaves void, and voids invite storms. Somewhere, in shadow of world, other horns waited, other dreamers touched by night. She squared shoulders. "Let them come," she whispered. "Not for Barristan but for stars overhead. Let every darkness come. Fire and blood will answer." Sun dipped behind Blackwater Bay. Dragonstone breathed peace. Uncertain, new far off, Old Town's beacon relit, shining across dusk. For tonight at least, its light belonged to the living, not the lost. And on cold waves, where silence had sunk, a single rune-etched fragment bobbed, cooling, dark. It drifted, spun and sank, swallowed by a depthless hush where even dragonfire fades. Yet sparks in darkness can root in secret, waiting ages to burn. But that tale was for another dawn. Word count, 5,350. Kai. Mist still steamed from the blackened deck of Dragonstone's eastern landing when dawn gave way to a pearl-white morning. Daenerys stood atop a spur of fused basalt, barefoot, salt drying on her skin where sea spray had kissed her during the flight back. The war had followed her home. Every breath tasted of smoke. Every gull's cry sounded like the echo of Dragonbinder's dying scream. Yet the island breathed with her. Geysers hissed faint music, and in distant caverns, magma pulsed like the heartbeat of some Leviathan guardian. Behind, Rhaegal and Valyrian roosted upon the ramparts, wings mantled wide to catch the sun. Drogon claimed the highest pinnacle, tail coiled around the jagged crown, obsidian claws chipping stone. Their eyes followed every motion below, as though a single spark of horn-born magic might still drift upon the wind. Barristan Selmy approached in measured steps, white cloak trailing across soot-dusted flagstones. He bowed. She thanked him with a nod, yet kept gaze upon the narrowing horizon where Old Town lay 3 days' sail away, the city she had saved, though she had never sworn to guard it. Smoke no longer rose from the harbor. Ravens had come in the night, bearing thanks and pleas both. The citadel begged her presence. The high tower offered stores of grain. The conclave desired parley concerning draconic scholarship. All polite, all urgent. Tyrion arrived next, face haggard from sleepless hours, spent tallying casualties. The fires that consumed Euron's fleet were visible halfway up the Blackwater. Sailors sworn to the Tyrells claimed every soul aboard the flagship perished save perhaps one priest and a queen of fire. The dwarf carried a ledger, but when he reached her side, he closed it with a sigh. "We should sail at once, your grace," he said. "Old Town will not sleep until you show them the dragons mean safety, not ruin. And if the Reach is convinced, the grain caravans may feed your armies all the way to King's Landing." Daenerys' breath fogged in morning chill. "It is not grain that troubles me," she murmured. "It is horns. The Citadel thinks they hold a shard of Dragonbinder safe in lead caskets, but they do not know what stirs inside broken songs." She touched her stomach where adrenaline still thrummed days after battle. "Magic has roots deeper than mortar. We can still till the soil around those roots," Tyrion offered. "If we leave them buried, they may sprout wolves. Better to dig them out beneath high sun." Barristan nodded agreement. "Grand Maester Orwell promises a conclave of learned men. Samwell Tarly speaks well of them." A faint smile tugged Daenerys' mouth. Sam saved Jorah with dark arts he barely understood. But dragons he understands only in songs. "Very well. Rhaegal will bear me and Sir Barristan." We land inside the bailey. Drogon and Viserion remain to guard. No, Drogon comes. The Citadel should see all three. She turned to the dwarf. "Tyrion, you will sail aboard Silver Wind with Grey Worm and a company of Unsullied. If the seas are clear, we arrive together. If pirates test us, dragons will answer." Tyrion inclined his head. "An old lion once told me words are wind. A dragon's roar is treaty enough." When sun stood at zenith, 3 colossal shadows rippled across the reach, scattering flocks from shining wheat. Farmers sank to their knees before plows. Children squealed both awe and terror. Some had heard rumor that Euron's horn had turned dragons to fell beasts. Now they saw the beasts answering a silver-haired woman's gentle touch, and confusion warred with wonder in their eyes. By dusk, Old Town's high walls loomed beneath. The Hightower's beacon glared like a second sun where last week it had merely smoldered. Bells pealed, deeper and slower than during invasion. This time, homage, not alarm. Daenerys guided Rhaegal toward a cleared square inside the new city. Gilded helms flashed as city guard parted. Draped banners bearing the seahorse of House Hightower snapped. Lord Leighton himself awaited, a pale scholar of a lord cosseted for years in the Tower's uppermost rookery, rumored mad from potions and star lore. He descended now clad in half-armor green as tarnished copper, beard braided with tiny quartz flasks. Beside him walked Melora Hightower, rumpled leathers smelling of dust and ink. She clutched a stack of parchment filled with sketches of dragons, drawn, she claimed, from childhood visions. They knelt. Daenerys dismounted, silk skirts swirling in heat from the dragon's nostrils. She lifted Lord Leighton before he could complete formalities. "Stand, my lord. There's been enough bending of knees this week." He straightened, voice brittle from disuse. "Your grace saved this city from a night darker than any starless tide. The Hightowers owe life and light." He gestured to maesters clustering near. Archmaester Abrose, a hawk-nosed healer in green crystal. Archmaester Valen in black. Samwell among them, shy. In their midst, a lead casket, no bigger than Daenerys' arm, lay chained to an iron frame. Runes of warding glowed faint blue on its rim. Barristan eyed it warily. "Is that what I think?" Samwell swallowed. "A fragment, Sir Dardai." The larger half sank with the flagship. Diver crews hired by the Hightower fished this from Flotsam at sunrise. They returned, unwell. 2 men bled from ears, another raves still. "And now?" Valen lifted a leather-gloved hand. "We sealed it in this vessel lined with obsidian chips. Wards should dampen lingering sorcery." Daenerys stepped close, Drogon's growl vibrating ground. The casket throbbed softly, like distant drums. She placed palm upon lead and felt memory of flame drain as though the iron box drank warm. "Can it be destroyed?" Her voice scarcely above breath. Abrose coughed. "We attempted to melt shavings in an alchemist's crucible. Flame guttered. Metal remained cold. It repelled heat like water on wax." Samwell's gaze lifted with timid courage. "Perhaps we cannot unmake what Valyria bound, but we can bury it beneath faith. There's talk of lowering the piece into the ocean's deepest trench, where some other would-be warlock might find it. Tyrion spoke, arriving up steps with Grey Worm. Nothing stays hidden forever. Better we learn its secrets, bind them ourselves against misuse. A hush followed. Flames on lantern poles bucked. Uneasy, Daenerys considered. To keep any piece of dragon binder risked repeating nightmare. To discard it meant trusting oceans or earth, not to regurgitate horrors centuries hence. She touched Tyrion's shoulder. We study it, but only under draconic guard. Her eyes swept Maester's. You will build a chamber of fused stone beneath this citadel, walls lined with obsidian forged by dragon flame. No one enters unless accompanied by one of my blood or by sworn maester of unimpeachable honor. She looked to Sam. Will you swear? He blushed crimson. I serve the realm's knowledge, your grace. If it protects Westeros, I will. Then. The Archmaesters exchanged glances, weight of centuries of neutrality pressing their spines. Yet even they sensed New Age's tide rising. At length Vaelin inclined his head. So let it be recorded. Far away, across ragged waves, an oil-drenched gull perched upon the stump of the Silence's broken mizzen, which jutted like a charred finger above eerily still sea. The bird cocked head at flotsam swirling round. Splinters. Skull fragments, melted rings. Midst debris a sliver of rune-etched steel glittered, no bigger than a child's finger. It pulsed once. Faint. The gull shrieked, flapping skyward, unsettled by shimmer that felt like heartbeat. A shadow passed beneath water, enormous, slow. A mouth like a cavern opened, swallowing shard, mast, and swirling ash whole. Sea, closed, silent. Only rings of ripple told tale. Soon wind erased even those. The Leviathan slid into black depths, unknowable. Darkness pressed in cold enough to slow blood, yet the creature's ancient eyes glowed lambent. Within its belly, the shards sang soft, foreign. Songs shape flesh, and the deeps are patient. On the Iron Islands, torches sputtered in evening drizzle as the Kingsmoot assembled. Not for jubilation, but for reckoning. Euron was gone. Proof lay in ravens delivered by surviving captains of Bane and Leech. They brought tales of dragonfire and a priest's rebellion, of a horn that drank men's screams and a queen who shattered it with broken chisel. Euron Greyjoy had returned from deadened South Seas, maimed arm bound in leather sleeves slick with fragrant resin. He wore a rusted patch over ear where blast had scarred him. Beneath helm his remaining hair gleamed silver. The Silent Sisters rumored he had lost more than flesh. Nightmares stalked him, whispering in tongues of krakens. He took the driftwood throne with little ceremony. None challenged immediately. Asha, once Yara, watched from crowd, jaw clenched. She knew Uncle's rule would bleed islands dry chasing vengeance, yet even she sensed hunger among Ironborn, a need for blood ventures to drown shame of Euron's failure. Euron Greyjoy arrived late, robed in ragged sailcloth smelling of tides. Rumors of his survival preceded him. When he stepped upon slick stone dais, hush rolled outward. His eyes, once wild, shone now with calm like deep trenches. "Brothers," he began, voice low yet carrying, "I bring word from the sea. The drowned god has spoken in waves and whirlpools. Our pride birthed a storm, and that storm is spent. He bids us lay aside demon horns, take up nets, not spears, fish the sea that feeds, not kingdoms that rot." Jeers erupted. Victarion rose, wooden arms striking stone like hammer. "We are krakens, not cod farmers." Rain darkened his gorget, veins bulged in neck. "The sea gives and takes. It took my brother, but left us ships. We sail for Lannisport. We pay iron price. Then," Asha stepped forward, "you will sail for Graves, uncle. Golden lions wait with scorpions that kill dragons." She turned to Throng. "Listen to the damn fair. Trade may fatten purses faster than raids, and we keep lives to see children grow." Ironborn spat at mention of trade, old disdain rooted deep. Yet the horn's tail chilled them. Even reavers fear leashes they cannot gnaw. Euron raised hands. I will show you omen. He poured seawater from a conch into shale bowl. Whispering, he dropped rusted nail from Silence's hull. Water fizzed, smoking black vapor. The horn's poison seeped still. War upon west will draw dragons to our coasts, and they breathe truth of our folly. He lifted bowl. Liquid now tar. Choose. Drown pride or drown beneath flame. The crowd murmured. Lightning flashed, backlighting crashing surf. Thunder boomed like deep drums. Some men looked to clouds and saw shapes of wings, though none soared there. Victarion glared. You preach fear. He slammed fist onto driftwood armrest. Splinters flecked. Fear is for Greenlanders. Euron met his gaze with gentled sadness. Fear is for men touched by gods. The sea taught humility. Without it we walk blind. The night stretched. Rain hardened to sleet. Ironborn weighed futures, measured in plunder or peace. No vote that eve resolved throne. Yet seeds of doubt sprouted in hearts who once cheered Euron's rise. The Kingsmoot broke apart, torches dwindling under storm. And as men trudged to longships, some slipped quietly to Euron's followers, seeking new rites of drowning not in blood but in rebirth. In King's Landing, torches flickered row upon row along the outer bailey of the Red Keep, reflecting off fresh-oiled scorpion bolts stacked like grain sheaves. Cersei stood on a parapet, facing Blackwater Bay, lungs savoring stink of tallow and riverweed. Qyburn hovered behind, hands folded. So the Kraken choked, she said, satisfaction curling lips. I warned the fool to keep bright sails away from dragons. Qyburn inclined head. Regrettable, your grace, yet not without dividends. He produced a small satchel. From it he withdrew a charred coin of blackened silver, rune-etched. Recovered from broken beams beached near Tarth. Our agents report. Residual magic weak, but lines resemble those on dragon binder castings. Cersei held the shard to torchlight. Runes winked like dying embers. My red priests say fragments retain essence. I have men in the citadel, Qyburn whispered. They can spirit the larger piece from Old Town if given time. With sufficient fragments I might reforge what killed its last owner. She tossed shard. He snatched, cradling carefully. I would leash no dragon maester. I need only kill them. But to know their weaknesses could crown me victor. Ben Sao. Qyburn smiled. A serpent in scholar's robes. Knowledge will be fashioned into weapons, not chains. I study the shards, distill resonance, craft ballista heads that burst into frequencies dragons fear. Cersei's eyes narrowed. Do it discreetly. If Daenerys learns of this, she will fly upon us before we're ready. Secrecy is mother's milk to me, Qyburn purred. As he departed, Cersei turned eyes to moonlit river. She traced scorpion silhouette against sky. A weapon built of steel and cunning, yet requiring men of steady nerve. Dragons soared beyond, out of range for now. But horns break minds as well as beasts. Perhaps shards in proper housings could shatter wings before arrows ever flew. A cruel smile blossomed. Let the silver bitch think victory final. The game endured. Above cloud seas west of Old Town, Daenerys flew often at night to still the heartbeat of worry that shards might call again. One such flight found her drifting across fields where armies once clashed at the Mander. Pale fog lay thick. Through shreds glimmered lanterns on wagons hauling barrels of red wine north. She descended lightly on hilltop among whispering reeds. Tyrion arrived astride small palomino borrowed from Hightower stables. He disliked riding but disliked missing counsel more. He dismounted with grunt and produced skin of peach brandy. You should sleep, he chided. A general does less good when yawning. Dreams show horns breaking again. She accepted sip. Am I queen if haunted by ghosts of songs? Ghosts make loyal advisors, Tyrion mused. They remind you which mistakes to avoid. She gazed over fog-wrapped countryside, memory flickering to marine smoke after sun's attack. My mistakes breed tombs, and our victories replant fields. He pointed to wagons. Farmers return when dragons drive off reavers. That is seat of rule. A faint laugh escaped her. Do you always soothe with riddles? 8 times. At times with wine. He proffered skin. She drank again, warmth, sliding chest. For moments silence fell comfortable. Crickets chorused. Rhaegal snorted fireflies from grass. Then distant horn of mundane brass echoed from valley. Merchant caravans signaled to open gates. She stiffened, every muscle attending. Tyrion noted, raising brow. Not every horn is doom, he said gently. She exhaled. Horn or scorpion, spear or whisper. They all aim for my heart. She placed hand upon Rhaegal's scales, feeling pulse. But this heart has scales of its own. Tyrion bowed. And beats for more than war. Inside the citadel's deepest vault, Samwell inspected fresh carved basalt walls, while maesters chanted spells gleaned from Valyrian glyphs. Obsidian shards embedded into mortar glowed faintly when dragons roared overhead. The shard of Dragonbinder sat upon pedestal of black glass, double-warded. Outer ring of copper inlaid with runes, inner of white marble etched with Harkoon script. Ravens perched silent in niches, their eyes filmed as though seeing worlds beyond. Archmaester Velen recorded pulses in ledgers. Each midnight, shard emitted soundless tremor measured by pendulums. They noted amplitude decayed nightly, yet curve plateaued, never reaching zero. As though magic resisted full extinguishment. Sam read scrolls of Azur Ahai, studied the triple kiss of fire gods, cross-referenced with Cohoric steel forging. He realized spells might not die but migrate into water, stone, flesh. If Leviathan swallowed shard, perhaps sea would birth new terror. He proposed forging dragonscale armor lines to insulate Horn's frequencies, concept to present Daenerys later. Outside vault, other maesters whispered fear that Orlor priests would storm city to claim artifact. But the Red Temple remained distant. Benero's cries turned now toward Slaver's Bay, where rumors of plague and rebellion surfaced. The world's cracks widening. On Storm's End ramparts, Gendry Baratheon watched summer lightning flicker across Shipbreaker Bay Dai. Ravens bore news of Euron's fall. Stormlanders cheered his and Daenerys' alliance sealed by shared enemy. A raven from Arya Stark carried only single word: beware. He puzzled. Arya seldom wasted ink. Did she foresee darker foe than Kraken? He looked seaward at flashes. Far out, silhouettes of ships prowled horizon. Sails black trimmed gold. Sell sails of the Golden Company ferrying across from Lys, financed by Lannister coin funneled through Iron Bank. Their arrival months, early unsettled calculus. And among them, rumor said a dragon skull taken from Summerhall, mounted on prow, trophy to mock Targaryens. Gendry fingered hammerhead, brow furrowed. He had Baratheon blood, but still felt blacksmith's calloused caution. He scribbled reply to Arya. Storm's End braces. Candle wax sealed letter quickly, though dread cooled wax faster. North of King's Landing, along Gold Road, Qburn's traveling workshop rattled. 6 wagons draped in canvas hide etched with crow sigils. Inside, iron frames cradled severed wyvern heads pickled in green gel. Specimens acquired from Sothorios smugglers to test resonance bursts. Lenses ground from dragonglass, funneled vibrations. Shards of Dragonbinder, ground to powder. Infused oils that when ignited produced shriek audible only to scaled beasts. One experiment loosed near Harrenhal caused bats to rain dead for leagues. Small reptilian creatures left from summer migrations convulsed, scales cracking. Qyburn smiled, noted results, adjusted levers. Progress, he whispered. The wagon behind housed dwarf-sized ballista bolts, tipped with crystal ampules, each labeled with chalk. Screamers. Winterfell bathed in autumnal frost, when ravens fetched word of Horn's destruction. Sansa read message beneath Weirwood's red leaves, lips tightened. Good news seldom arrived with such dread. If Horn could be broken, it could also be forged new. Bran, Lord Protector yet more quiet than Lord, seemed unmoved. But that night, Sansa passed his chamber and heard him whisper to ravens perched along beams. Tell the last greenseer the song-changed key. The cliffs yet echo. She stepped back. Unsettling. Bran's eyes glowed white. Inside them danced fractal images. Wings of ice, horns of bone. She hurried on. Winter arrived soon enough without listening at doors. In distant Valyria, ash winds coiled through smoking spires where once the freeholds might dwarfed empires. Atop cracked ziggurat, a masked figure knelt. Robes of red and black fluttered. The figure's hands cupped glowing coals set in silver braziers. The coals pulsed thrice. A low laugh echoed, muffled by iron mask wrought in form of screaming dragon. It breaks, yet not ends, the figure hissed in high Valyrian. Pieces sowed. Seeds sprout vengeance. Around braziers, malformed creatures, scaled men with half-melted faces, writhed in chains. The mask-wearer sprinkled dust ground from a scarlet stone. Flames leapt green. A vision unfolded. A deep monster swallowing shard, forging new song inside abyss. The masked figure bowed deep, voice reverent. Mother of dragons, thinks victory. It traced sign of burning comet in air. We shall remind her the doom belongs to none but doom. Lightning forked across clouds. Volcano belched smoke smelling of brimstone and tears. Echoes of broken horn drifted across ruin like lullaby for corpses. Back in Old Town weeks past, dragons perched daily upon higher arches, their silhouettes becoming part of skyline. Children skipped beneath wings brave with new mythology. Some called Daenerys Flame-a-Mother. Others, Storm Quencher. The Citadel, once aloof, hosted open lectures on Valyrian metallurgy. Street hawkers sold tin horns engraved with crude glyphs. Dangerous novelty quickly outlawed after childs playing startled horses into market crowd. Daenerys spent hours with maesters, gleaning histories of Valyria's blood forges. She listened to Sam describe pyromantic resonance as if it were smithwork, as delicate as a harp. She asked how horns chose masters, why one eye darkened when other brightened. Sam confessed ignorance, but he posited horns imprinted on souls that had swallowed certain quantity of death. I believe cost is proportionate, he said, adjusting spectacles. Euron thrived on slaughter. Horn fed on him, perhaps shaping resonance to his appetite. You, your grace, are breaker, not eater of chains. Horn's magic rejected you, because freedom is poison to bondage. She mulled. Then to wield such horn one must sacrifice freedom. In essence. He shuffled scrolls. Old scroll of Mantares says, only the bound may bind. Perhaps the artifact demanded Euron's humanity in exchange for Dragon's will. She shivered. Drogon rumbled, sensing unease. Sam added softly, if shard yet sings in deep, some creature may answer. We must map trenches. The Citadel's Leviathan charts show canyon near stepstones descending farther than any lead line. Her eyes hardened, a queen's resolve tempered by prophecy. When war for throne is done, we hunt abyss. Meanwhile, Tyrion walked Old Town's seafront one night, lantern guiding steps along tar-black water. He paused upon pier where fishermen gathered to trade gossip. One recounted seeing a whale beach itself near Sunhouse. When slit open, its belly held molten metal veins and fish burned inside. Tyrion's mind conjured image of Leviathan with shard inside. A drunk reachman slurred of hearing low horn moan at dusk, echoing from water, not shipping horns, but deeper timbre. Sailors claimed tides shifted unnatural. Nets pulled by currents shaped like circles. Tyrion purchased the man more ale, coaxed details. The fisherman drew spiral shape and spilled liquor. Tyrion's blood chilled, looked like glyph Euron had carved. He carried news to Daenerys. While the queen prepared for Levianthic threat, politics advanced. Garland Tyrell sailed from Brightwater with token fleet to pledge fealty, courting alliance now that Highgarden's coffers bled after Euron's raids. Dorne's Princess Arianne arrived with sand-silk banners, keen to join war on Lannisters. In Dragonstone's hall of painted table they convened. Tyrell roses, Martell sons, Stark direwolves, alliances weaving tapestry, unseen since Aegon's conquest. On starless night before council's first sitting, A hooded stranger delivered letter to Daenerys' chambers, then vanished. It bore Bolton's sigil slashed through with crimson X, the mark of executed traitor. Inside, map of King's Landing's secret scorpion nests, signed by one word. SS. She wondered if Sandor Clegane still walked, or perhaps Sansa whispered revolt through ravens. Tyrion studied map, brow knitted. Whoever sent this knows Red Keep better than Qyburn suspects. Or they want to lead us into trap. I will judge by firelight, Daenerys said. Beyond seas, in Bravos, Iron Bank representatives watched ledgers tilt. They noted Golden Company landing earlier than forecast, though debts yet unpaid. The banker Tycho Nestoris read reports of Dragon's Horn broken, muttered that risk indices changed. They might shift allegiance to whichever side held dragons, not horns. He penned message to King in the north and to Queen in Old Town both. Credit lines negotiable. War's tide is currency. A fortnight later, moon rose full over Old Town. Silvering towers and masts. In Citadel Vault, pendulum needles quivered violently, then stilled. Sam rushed inside. Shard glowed again. First time in days. On far coast, fishermen heard moan like mountain grinding against another. Deep beneath waves, Leviathan swam towards soundless summons, belly shard pulsing brighter. Around it, smaller creatures followed hypnotic spiral, cold eyes vacant. The shard no longer merely sang, it shaped will. Citadel ravens carried alarms. Daenerys met Sam atop battlements as dawn-tinted sky rose. The deep moves, he gasped. I think Euron's magic found new vessel. She summoned dragons. Rhaegal roared. Valyrian echoed. Drogon spread vast wings. But they would not dive deep. Scales fear crushing dark. She looked to Tyrell and Martell envoys scrambling below. War for throne paused. New terror rose from fathomless black where light died. She would not yield seas to darkness. She resolved to mount fleet of fire and sail beyond continental shelf, to hunt whatever awoke. Barristan frowned. Naval combat not dragon's strength. But queenship demanded impossible tasks. She placed hand on weathered wood of pier, feeling tide's heartbeat. We face shadow of horn, she said, born anew in flesh of abyss. If I do not drown it, the realm never sleeps. Bendatarni. Tyrion exhaled. Then let us build torches bright enough to burn the ocean. In Blackwater Bay, Qyburn watched prototype screamer bolt test from parapet. Ballista twanged. Projectile streaked into sky. Crystal ampule bursting mid-arc.itu. No dragon overhead, but warlock's caged wyvern in pit. Shrieked. Scales splitting, blood frothing. Qyburn smiled. Soon, he whispered, fire shall fear sound. Cersei sipped wine on crimson balcony. Smirk curving. Let the silver slut bring her dragons, she murmured. Lightning cracked far off, though skies were clear. Echo of deeper storm. She raised goblet to threat unseen. Night before Daenerys sailed, she walked Old Town's whispering gardens. Torchbugs hovered luminous. She sensed step behind. Euron. Hair tied. Seawater hanging scent. He bowed. No longer ragged. I go with you, he declared. She tilted head. Priest of Drowned God joining Dragon Queen? Sea and flame wage ancient war. Within deep my God whispers, if Leviathan rises, drown it with blessing. He touched flask at hip, filled with sacred seawater. I know songs to quell tides, perhaps hold Shard's siren long enough for your flame. Something in his eyes, once haunted, now serene. Persuaded. She nodded. Priest joined retinue of unsullied marines, forging alliance unimaginable months earlier. 3 days later, a fleet of 30 ships. Sails white trimmed crimson. Departed Old Town. At prow of flagship, breaker of chains, Daenerys stood clad in scaled leather dyed cobalt, hair braided with pearls. Beside her Sam laid sextant upon railing, nerves fluttering. Euron prayed soft. Grey Worm marshaled spear-ranked soldiers. On quarterdeck, Tyrion gazed aft at receding city. "They will compose legends," he muttered. "Queen hunts sea dragon with burning heart of drowned horn." Daenerys smiled grim. "Better a legend than nightmare." Clouds thickened ahead, violet swirls. Sea smelled of iron. Somewhere beneath, shard pulsed, thrumming call to depths. And deeper still, something answered, vast as mountains, old as doom. Dragons wheeled overhead, reflections casting molten gold on waves. Their roars challenged horizon. Fleet plunged on, sails taut, toward trench where day would falter and kingdom's fate echo in abyssal halls. The story stretched forward, threads weaving scorch and salt, horn and fang, crown and tide. And beneath all, the song, broken yet unending, waited to decide whether men would master fire, drown in dark, or rise anew beneath twin thrones of sea and flame.